All right, ready for a deep dive?
Let's do it.
Today, we're diving into the life and times of Mahatma Gandhi.
Through his own words.
His autobiography, yeah.
Fascinating stuff.
It really is a first-hand account of his journey, from childhood.
To becoming the leader we all know.
Right. But we're going deeper than just a summary, right?
Absolutely. We're on a mission here.
Oh, yeah.
To find those golden nuggets.
Okay, I like that.
The moments of self-discovery.
Yeah.
The moral struggles.
Those turning points.
Yeah, the things that make this autobiography so powerful.
It really is like a window into how he became, Gandhi.
Exactly, and I think a lot of people have this image of him,
Like a saint, right from the start.
Yeah, but his autobiography...
Paints a different picture.
Very human.
Very human, for sure.
You see him grappling with...
Real stuff.
Teenage temptations.
Marital challenges.
Even a fear of public speaking.
No way, really.
He doesn't hide his flaws.
He owns them.
Embraces them.
Part of the journey. So let's start at the beginning.
Sounds good.
Gandhi's description of his father.
Interesting, right?
He was a Diwan.
A chief minister, essentially.
But also in service to the local ruler.
That dynamic must have influenced young Gandhi, don't you think?
For sure, it had to.
He describes his father as, a man of strong principles.
Okay.
Fiercely loyal.
Yeah.
But also...
prone to anger.
Yeah. Fits of anger.
That's interesting, that duality,
You see it reflected in Gandhi's own life, too.
You're right. It's almost like he's wrestling with those traits.
Trying to reconcile them with his own,
sense of morality.
Yay!
And then there's his father's accident.
Right before Gandhi's wedding.
What a tough time for the family.
Well, it's been incredibly stressful.
Gandhi even admits
that the excitement of the wedding
distracted him
from his father's suffering.
Wow.
He reflects on this later with regret.
I can see why.
As a sign of his, immaturity at that time.
It's a good reminder that even someone like Gandhi
had to deal with those messy emotions.
Family, relationships, it's complicated.
It is.
And speaking of complicated, his marriage to Kasturbai.
That's a whole other chapter.
He talks about his efforts to educate her.
His lustful love, he calls it.
And the restrictions, placed on women by society.
He's actually pretty critical of himself.
Oh, yeah.
He writes that if his love for her had been pure,
selfless,
she would become a learned lady. He sees his early marriage as a period of learning.
Coming to terms with
his own desires.
Societal expectations.
All of it.
It's interesting how he ties this personal reflection...
the broader critique.
Of the Purdah system.
The seclusion of women.
Right. Even at a young age, you see those connections forming.
Absolutely. His personal experience is shaping his worldview.
And we see this again in his school days.
Oh, tell me about it.
The corporal punishment incident.
Not so much the physical pain that bothered him.
It was the injustice, right.
Exactly.
He even questioned physical training.
As a necessary part of education.
Which is surprising.
Considering his later emphasis on...
physical discipline.
Self-control.
Right. So what changed?
I think it reflects his evolving understanding.
Of the mind-body connection.
Early on, education was mainly intellectual for him.
Okay.
But later, he realizes that physical discipline...
can be a powerful tool.
For self-mastery, for spiritual growth.
Feels like he's discovering...
that everything's connected.
Physical, mental, spiritual.
All intertwined.
And then there's the teenage meat-eating experiment.
Oh, yeah, that one.
He thought it would make him stronger.
But the guilt...
the dishonesty...
led him to abandon it.
Such a powerful lesson there.
About his moral compass developing.
Right. It's not just about the act itself.
It's the intention behind it.
Aligning actions with values.
That's where true strength comes from.
And then the story about the brothel.
Oh, chill.
Saved by the skin of his teeth, he says.
It's a stark reminder.
Of the temptations he faced.
Even as a young man who considered himself morally upright.
It's almost like these early experiences.
Those brushes with temptation, with moral conflict.
They planted the seeds.
For his later commitment to ahimsa.
Nonviolence.
Reverence for all life.
And from these struggles
comes a life-changing decision
to go to England.
Study law.
Huge step.
Especially for someone from his background.
What was the driving force?
Family friend, Mobji Dave.
Oh, God.
He saw that the traditional path...
becoming a Diwan.
Might not be enough.
In a changing world.
Exactly. He convinced Gandhi that a law degree from England...
would open doors.
New possibilities.
I can't even imagine the culture shock.
From India to Victorian England.
It must have been a completely different world.
He describes it as such.
Overwhelmed by everything, I bet.
The clothes, the customs.
He even tells this funny story.
About ruining a friend's top hat.
No.
Didn't understand European etiquette.
It's like a fish out of water story.
But amidst all this,
a key development.
His commitment to vegetarianism deepens.
Interesting. He really dives into it.
Reading books, especially Howard Williams' The Ethics of Diet.
It's like his intellectual exploration.
Coincides with his personal struggles.
With temptation, self-control.
He's starting to connect the dots.
Between beliefs and lifestyle.
Precisely.
Like realizing that everything's connected.
What you eat, how you dress, how you interact.
It all reflects who you are.
And this is also when he tries to become...
the English gentleman.
Taking classes, attempting the London matriculation exam.
Overcoming his shyness.
Which he describes as crippling.
Can you imagine?
The Mahatma? Struggling with public speaking.
That's incredible.
It shows that everyone has their challenges.
But he doesn't give up easily.
No, he keeps pushing himself.
Even with setbacks.
Absolutely.
And speaking of pushing himself.
There's that story about his marriage.
Oh, right. He was initially ashamed to admit it.
But he eventually opens up.
Good for him.
Receives a supportive letter from a friend.
Honesty and openness.
Becoming central to his philosophy.
Embracing vulnerability.
Instead of hiding.
And his belief in divine guidance.
That solidifies during this period, too.
He talks about an incident at Portsmouth.
Resisting temptation.
God's protection, he says.
It's like these early experiences.
Tests of willpower.
Laying the foundation.
For his future leadership.
Absolutely.
Urging his character.
In the fires of challenge.
And speaking of challenges.
His return to India.
A whole new chapter begins.
He starts his legal career.
But his first case.
A disaster.
Really?
He quickly decides to avoid taking on any more cases.
Wow, not cut out for the courtroom, huh?
He wasn't comfortable with the adversarial system.
But he doesn't abandon justice altogether?
No, he drafts a memorial for a poor Muslim man.
Whose land was confiscated.
Right, working outside the traditional legal framework.
That's interesting. And then there's that encounter.
With the British officer.
Who advises him to use influence and connections.
To navigate the Kathiawar region.
But Gandhi rejects that approach, right?
He does, prefers to rely on arguments and principles.
Unwavering moral compass.
Even in a cynical world.
Not interested in playing the game.
Wants to change the rules entirely.
And this leads him to South Africa.
A pivotal turning point.
A simple legal dispute between two Indian merchants.
But it would expose him to so much more.
Racial discrimination, the need for social change.
It would change his life forever.
Welcome back. We're in the thick of it now.
Gandhi's journey to South Africa.
A journey that would shape him, really shape him.
And give birth to Satyagraha.
Nonviolent resistance, right?
Exactly.
You know, I think a lot of people hear that word.
Satyagraha.
And they have a vague idea, but what does it really mean?
Well, it's often translated as truth force. Or soul force.
I like that.
It goes beyond passive resistance, though.
So it's more active?
Much more. It's about confronting injustice. With the power of truth, love.
And self-suffering, right?
Yes, that's a key element.
Appealing to the oppressor's conscience.
Not through force.
But through unwavering commitment.
Even when it's hard.
So it's not about weakness at all.
No, not at all.
It's a different kind of strength.
From within.
And this philosophy.
It doesn't just appear overnight.
It's a process.
We see it develop through his experiences in South Africa.
Starting with his arrival in Pretoria.
Right. He meets Mr. Baker there.
A Christian who invites him to prayer meetings.
Gandhi declines to convert.
But he engages in those religious discussions.
Respectful dialogue.
Open to learning.
While staying true to his own beliefs.
I think that's something we could all learn from.
That openness, that willingness to listen.
Amen. That incident on the train.
Thrown off simply because of his race.
Wow, that must have been a wake-up call.
A brutal confrontation with racism.
You can feel the outrage in his writing.
But his response is incredible.
Tell me about it.
He doesn't seek revenge.
Instead,
he uses this experience
to fight for change.
For everyone.
He channels that anger into action.
Gets involved with the natal Indian Congress.
This is where he starts to hone his leadership skills,
right? Absolutely. Organizing, advocating, fundraising.
He's learning the ropes.
Of community activism.
And then there's the issue of permanent funds.
For public institutions.
Right. He initially supports the idea.
Believing it will ensure stability.
Independence.
But then his views shift.
After witnessing internal disputes.
Exactly.
Which I think is interesting because it shows
that he's not dogmatic.
Right. He's willing to adapt.
Based on experience, on observation.
He comes to believe that annual subscriptions are a better test.
Of an institution's relevance.
Keeping them accountable.
To the people they serve.
That's a pretty modern concept.
You're right.
A lot of organizations today struggle with that.
Finding that balance.
Financial sustainability, public accountability.
It's a constant tension.
And then there's brahmacharya. This was during his time serving in the Zulu rebellion, right?
Correct.
A lot of people don't realize
that Gandhi served in the military.
Before embracing nonviolence fully. It's kind of the paradox, isn't it?
It is. But it was during this time
that he had this realization
about self-control.
Not just for personal growth,
but for serving others effectively.
It's not just celibacy.
No, it's about mastering desires.
Impulses.
Everything.
He sees brahmacharya as a path
to greater clarity, focus,
and dedication to his mission.
It permeates his family life, too.
Oh, how so?
He insists on teaching his children their mother tongue.
Emphasizing cultural identity.
Even in a foreign land.
It's like he's recognizing the power of culture.
Language.
To shape how we see the world.
Even as we navigate.
The multicultural society.
Exactly.
But he's honest about the challenges.
Of brahmacharya.
He admits that controlling thoughts is a constant struggle.
Which makes him, well, relatable.
He's not superhuman.
Just a person striving for something more.
Like all of us.
We're all works in progress.
And that commitment to self-discipline.
It's tested.
Time and time again.
Like with Kasturba's health issues.
Right. He believes in natural remedies.
Pleads with her to give up salt and pulses.
But she challenges him.
Says even he couldn't make that sacrifice.
So what does Gandhi do?
He undertakes the same fast himself.
For a whole year.
A whole year.
That's powerful.
Shows his love for his wife.
And his belief in self-denial.
To strengthen resolve.
To connect with something higher.
It's a profound act.
And it's not just about personal sacrifice.
The Tolstoy farm.
He encourages people of different faiths.
To fast and pray together.
Fostering harmony.
Finding unity amidst diversity.
That's beautiful.
Shared experience.
It reminds us that spiritual practice
doesn't have to be isolating.
It can be a source of connection.
Community building.
And his approach to education at the farm.
Very interesting.
He doesn't believe in rigid systems.
Emphasizes practical experience.
Parental involvement.
He even admits his knowledge of some subjects was limited.
Like Tamil.
But his students loved him.
Because he was honest?
Willing to learn alongside them.
Not some infallible expert.
They saw his humility.
His genuine investment in their growth.
And then World War I erupts.
A major turning point.
Gandhi grapples with a dilemma.
His commitment to nonviolence.
Tested.
He offers his services in the war effort.
Which caused a lot of debate.
I can imagine.
Some saw it as a contradiction.
But Gandhi believed
that serving in a non-combatant role,
like an ambulance corps,
was consistent with his principles.
So it's about alleviating suffering.
Even in the midst of war.
It's not pacifism at all costs.
It's about acting in accordance with your values.
Even in difficult situations.
And this commitment to action
leads to his first satyagraha in England.
He stands up against injustice.
Risking punishment.
To uphold his beliefs.
This is a big moment, isn't it?
It is the first time he truly puts satyagraha into action.
Showing its power.
To challenge authority.
Without violence.
A turning point for him.
And for the history of nonviolent resistance.
And then he returns to India.
Where he meets some of the most prominent Indian leaders.
Gokhale, Tilak, Jinnah.
He has these incredible insights into their personalities.
He describes Gokhale as the Ganges.
Welcoming, refreshing.
Tilak, like the vast ocean.
Powerful.
And Jinnah.
More reserved.
Hello.
He's so perceptive.
Captures their essence.
And he's also confronting the realities of Indian society.
Expresses disappointment with the Congress.
Internal divisions.
The practice of untouchability.
Even within the organization.
He calls out hypocrisy.
Wherever he sees it.
And then the plague outbreak.
That was a defining moment.
He works tirelessly.
Organizing volunteers.
Caring for the sick.
It shows his compassion.
His belief in the dignity of all people.
And those actions resonate with people.
They see him as a servant leader.
Someone willing to share in their suffering.
It builds trust, deepens his connection.
And as his influence grows,
he establishes the Sabarmati Ashram.
Choosing location near the Sabarmati Central Jail.
Interesting choice.
It's almost like he's embracing the possibility of imprisonment.
As part of his mission.
He knows there will be consequences.
For challenging the status quo.
And he's prepared to pay the price.
That willingness to accept suffering.
As a consequence of your actions.
To turn it into moral strength.
That's a core principle of satyagraha.
It is.
And it's put to the test.
During the Ahmedabad mill workers' strike.
The workers start to waver.
As the strike drags on.
Gandhi struggles with their wavering commitment.
It makes him reflect
on the nature of truth.
And the responsibilities of leadership.
He fasts in solidarity with them,
Not to coerce them,
but to demonstrate his own commitment.
to inspire them to stay true.
This is satyagraha in action, right?
Exactly.
Using self-suffering as a form of persuasion
Appealing to the conscience.
of the workers and the mill owners,
It's about leading by example.
showing the courage it takes to bring about change.
And then, the Keda Satyagraha.
This one shows Gandhi's strategic thinking.
His willingness to challenge unjust laws.
The Kedah district facing famine-like conditions.
But the British government refuses to suspend revenue assessment.
So Gandhi advises the farmers to resist paying taxes
Through non-cooperation.
and to embolden them
He encourages them to harvest onions.
from a field attached by the government.
This leads to the famous onion thief incident.
Right, Mohanlal Pandya embraces that label.
Turns it into a badge of honor.
It's a brilliant tactic.
Exposes the absurdity of the law.
Galvanizes support.
And ultimately,
The authorities make a concession,
they offer to suspend revenue assessment.
a victory for the people.
The power of Satyagraha.
But Gandhi's activism continues.
His views on World War I also evolve.
Initially, he supports the war effort.
Encourages Indians to enlist.
Surprising, considering his commitment to nonviolence.
He saw it as a way to demonstrate loyalty,
To earn the right to bear arms.
potentially leading to greater autonomy.
So it was a strategic move
A way to leverage India's contribution.
to advance the cause of self-rule.
Exactly.
But as the war goes on,
His thinking shifts,
he starts advocating for home rule.
believing that India's sacrifices deserve political freedom,
He's constantly reassessing.
adapting to the changing circumstances.
And even amidst all this,
He doesn't neglect his personal growth,
he describes a serious illness,
refuses medical treatment
enduring the suffering.
as a consequence of his choices,
Such willpower.
believing that hardship can be a form of purification.
He also re-examines his views on life insurance.
Sees it as dependence.
Lack of faith in divine providence.
He's always challenging himself,
Questioning his assumptions
pushing himself to live in alignment,
with his understanding of truth.
and this commitment to truth
It's tested again.
when his son, Manilal, falls ill.
A doctor recommends meat broth.
But Gandhi refuses.
Despite fearing for his son's life.
They won't compromise his principles.
What a difficult decision.
But it shows the depth of his conviction,
He stands by his beliefs.
no matter what. And this sets the stage
For another confrontation.
for the Hartal in Bombay.
To protest the Rollout Act. That Rollout Act, man,
Yeah, a real flashpoint.
gave the British government all this power.
To suppress dissent, basically.
Not a good look.
Definitely fueled the fire.
And Gandhi saw an opportunity, didn't he?
He did, a chance to mobilize people
Show the power of Satyagraha.
on a national scale.
But the Hartal in Bombay.
Things went wrong.
Violence erupted, even though Gandhi pleaded for peace.
Yeah, it's a reminder that things don't always,
Go as planned.
even with the best intentions.
It really shook Gandhi, didn't it?
It did, seeing that mob
The
violence.
destructive potential.
He realized that maintaining nonviolence in a mass movement,
It's incredibly difficult.
especially in the face of provocation.
And he confronts the police commissioner, right?
Mr. Griffith
Who defends the use of force,
says the people are easily swayed by emotion.
prone to disobedience.
You see that clash of worldviews.
Control versus trust.
The colonial mindset versus Gandhi's belief in people's inherent goodness.
And then there's the Khilafat movement.
Protecting the Ottoman Caliphate,
It resonated with Indian Muslims.
who felt betrayed by the British.
And Gandhi saw a chance for unity,
Hindu-Muslim unity.
essential for independence.
He throws his support behind the movement.
So it's strategic, but also
A genuine expression of his commitment to interfaith harmony.
he even suggests Muslims consider giving up cow slaughter.
As a gesture of goodwill.
But he emphasizes it should come from a place of understanding.
Not a bargain.
Building bridges, right?
Finding common ground.
Even on sensitive issues.
It's about empathy.
Recognizing different perspectives.
And as Gandhi's involved in the Khilafat movement,
His influence within the Congress grows.
he drafts a new constitution for them.
He's thinking about the practicalities.
Of building a strong movement.
Vision and organization.
He's an idealist, but also a pragmatist.
And then there's Kadi.
Handspun cloth.
Such a simple thing,
Yeah.
but so powerful.
For Gandhi, it symbolized self-reliance.
A rejection of British textiles.
A way to empower Indians.
Give them income.
The spinning wheel.
A tool for liberation.
Economic and spiritual.
It's brilliant connecting personal action.
To a larger message.
National pride, economic independence.
He weaves together the personal, the economic, the political.
And he doesn't just talk about it.
He learns to spin himself.
Leads by example.
Like with that mill owner who misunderstands him.
Gandhi patiently explains his reasoning.
Gandhi isn't about competition.
It's about empowering the masses.
Reviving a traditional craft.
A more humane economic model.
Valuing local production, the well-being of people.
That resonates even today.
Absolutely, with globalization, exploitation.
It's more relevant than ever.
And that brings us to 1921.
The end of his autobiography.
He says his life becomes so intertwined with the Congress.
With the struggle for independence.
It's no longer just his story.
It's a collective one.
He passes the torch.
Recognizing the movement is bigger than any individual.
A testament to his humility.
So, as we wrap up,
what are the key takeaways?
I'm struck by Gandhi's constant evolution.
He was always learning, questioning, adapting.
He shows us that growth is a journey.
And that even the greatest figures
are still works in progress.
He wasn't afraid to make mistakes.
To change his mind.
To be vulnerable.
And that's what makes him so relatable.
His emphasis on personal responsibility, too.
Real change starts with the individual.
With our choices.
Living in alignment with our values.
Even in small things.
Like wearing khadi, refusing to eat meat.
They can have a ripple effect.
Inspire others.
Contribute to a larger movement.
And his commitment to satyagraha.
Another way to fight injustice.
Rejecting violence.
Embracing truth, love, self-suffering.
It's a difficult path, but
as Gandhi shows us,
it can lead to incredible transformation.
Personal and societal.
It's a legacy that continues to inspire.
Activists, reformers.
Around the world.
Even in the face of overwhelming odds.
We can be the change we want to see.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive
into the life and times of Mahatma Gandhi.
We hope you've been inspired.
And maybe even challenged.
To apply some of his principles.
To your own life.